we're down at Horcott Lakes, first time I've ever been here, and what a fantastic, beautiful water it is. It's got some nice fish in it as well, some big plated mirrors. It's got commons over 40, or one common at least, and I got interested when I seen my mate Simon Crowe doing a blog on here, and I thought, wow, he caught a mega scaly 30-pound mirror, and I thought, wow, I'm going to try it. Anyway, cut a long story short, I've come down, I'm doing 48 hours as part of the sort of day ticket, doing my fishing kind of thing, and I've been fishing about 3 hours now, and got down here. It opens at 8 o'clock in the morning. Got down as the gates were opening, had a look around, chose a swim where I've seen some fish showing. I've seen probably about 8 or 9 fish show in my swim, so I'm very hopeful. I started off using 2 rods on the bottom, bags with maggots on initially, just to try and get a bite. I'm not going to do that later, I'm going to use them as part of the approach, but I've got other mix as well that I'm going to put in, which I'll show you further on in the little film. And I used a zig on the other one. I checked the depth, it was about 6 foot deep, so I've set one at about 4 foot. And I've been in about 3 hours and had a bite, and I thought it was a weigh, and unfortunately it was a tench. And I was bringing the tench in, and a pike, probably a mid to upper double, maybe it could have even been a 20, it attacked the tench when I was playing it and grabbed it by the tail, and you know, it felt a bit strange, but it came right in front of us. It's a shame we didn't have a filter on, so we could have filmed it to show you. Anyway, so it's hopeful, and it's all going to unfold, so I'll show you more. And the aim is to show you how I approach day ticket waters and my sort of spring, you know, late winter, spring sessions and typical approach. So we'll go into all that during the film and then see how it goes. Morning guys, I thought I'd just give you a little update about what's happened last night. We had torrential rain. I mean, all night long it's been relentless. Yesterday I spotted out the maggot and the 8mm boilie, corn and micro pellet combination, and just into darkness it was absolutely lagging it down. I had another take and I got a tench that was about £6, just what you need. And it was that heavy, the rain, I couldn't get another bag on and get back on the spot, so I had to just fish without a bag. So banged the maggot rig back out without a bag, and I'm never happy doing that, but I knew it was on the baited area approximately. No more bites. Si, my mate, he had a tench as well last night, and anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe to you how I approach typically day ticket waters. There's a lot of, we were just having a chat with some of the boys actually about that. It's very easy to just turn up at a place, find out what the going technique is. I mean, at the moment, everybody's using zigs on here. There was some guys having a social at the weekend apparently, 32 anglers on, and there was 12 fish came out. On every single fish was caught on a zig. So even though some of the guys were fishing on the bottom, and it kind of plays havoc with your mind, that, because you think, you know, do I have to use zigs on every rod? Probably. You know, I've seen some of the films that other guys have done on here, and they've had to resort to using all 3 rods on a zig. I could do that, but it wouldn't satisfy my curiosity. I like to do things my way, and whether it works or not, I think if you all just turn up at a lake and just fish parrot fashion, all put zigs on, the only fish that are going to get caught are going to come out on zigs, aren't they? Because no one's doing anything different. It's a bit different, like the weekend I was talking about. I don't know how many people were fishing on the bottom. There might have been a couple of them on the bottom, or there might have been more. In that case, zigs would be the obvious thing to do. But if hardly anyone's fishing on the bottom, they're not going to come out like that. They're going to come out on the zigs. And I know it's that time of year when zigs sort of are sublime, but it's only shallow out there. It's 6 foot deep, and it's not a huge drop for the fish to drop down on what I'm using. So I still think it's worth doing a different thing on each rod and still rounding on what might work, because the spark of creativity is missing if everyone does the same thing. And I kind of like hitting on a little train of thought. You know, you're going somewhere, try something a little bit different, and if that works, it can be really spectacular than just doing someone else's game badly. Because you'll find that the locals will know exactly what depth zigs to use on this water, for example, that fish it regular, whereas if you're a newcomer to the place, you're kind of guessing what sort of depth is good for the zigs. So that's what I mean, you're doing their game badly. Whereas if you did something a little bit off the cuff and a little bit different, and it works, you've got an edge then. It's something that you can work with. So that's the way I think anyhow. But later on in this session, I'll just tell you some of the kind of things I use and do to try and get the result, you know, and hopefully that could be interesting for you. And by the way, this is interesting. I couldn't get a bag on last night because it was raining so heavy. So in the middle of the night, I had this bizarre dream and dreamt up a way of putting a bag on very, very quickly on the hook and on the rig, so you can get it prepared, put it on, whap it out, and it's only gone and worked. I've used it for the first time ever, and I knocked one up this morning, put it on, and it looks fantastic. And so I'll show you that, and I'm dead chuffed with it, and it's brilliant. Just from some weird dream, I've got the answer to something that's unique, and I've never seen it used ever anywhere. So yeah, I'm dead chuffed with that, so I'll show you that in a bit. Hopefully it's a carp this time. Otherwise I'll be entering for the Drennan Cup, catching all these bloody tench. I think it's another tinker. No. Coming in too easy. Yeah. Pest control again, I think. In you come. So what you do is you just get the PVA, save a piece like that, and then just do a simple overhand knot in it. So put that through there. So you're making a little basic loop like that, and that loop there is where I'm going to just stick it on the bend of the hook. So just get me snips. Cut that piece off there. Use a slightly longer piece of PVA, but it doesn't matter. So do that. There's your loop. Just put your old mags in. Plunger. And then so I'll do another one for later. There we go. It couldn't be easier, this. And I've got a spare rig here, so I'll be able to show you without bringing a rod in how I do it. So there's your bag, there's your loop on the top. You can see it's ready. So when you come to putting your rig on, There's one I prepared earlier. Just put the hook straight through it and off you go. It's ridiculously easy, and because you've got it loops over like that, it'll withstand a right old good cast as well. So you can literally get it on in seconds and bam, out there. Well, I'm reluctantly winding in now. I've tried fishing on the bottom with 2 rods. I've had a zig on the whole time, but just the 3 tench on the bottom. So the only fish that have come out on zigs. So I think there's been 4 or 5 fish outs all concerned on zigs, so I'm going to have to change. I didn't want to, but I'm going to have to do it, so might as well do it sooner rather than later. I know it's a little bit predictable, but sometimes you've got to go with the flow. Well, morning guys. This is the second morning. We've been here, I don't know, about 40 hours now, and unfortunately it's not happened. Me and Si have had 5 tench between us. Not exactly what we wanted to catch. I fished on the bottom to start with. I used the maggot corn pellet approach with 8mm boilies. Si was using these sort of bottom mix on a couple of rods. We got tenched out, no carp, and you would have expected carp if they were feeding on the bottom with what we were doing. So the only other fish that came out were on the other side of the lake and down in the car park area. Nothing on this bank's been out. So we decided to round on the zigs, because that's what the other fish had been caught on. And you know, we'd had all the gen, black foam, the usual format, small pieces of black foam, 4 feet off the bottom, 4.5 feet was the going sort of thing. And we did that, but we did our variants on it and everything, and it just hasn't happened. We've had fish show in our areas, so there's no excuses, but they just don't seem to be feeding at the moment. There was a match on with 32 anglers at the weekend, so whether that's had an effect on it, I don't know. But it is what it is. But no excuses, not caught anything. Got a few hours to go, so maybe we can salvage it. But I just thought I'd have a little mention of the way I fish zigs. I don't use the zig liners much that seem to be very popular. I know they work and they're very good, but I'm a bit old-fashioned. I just like sticking to my guns and using with stuff that I've had success on over the years. And I have caught a lot of fish on zigs. I mean, here's one that I typically use. When I put that's just a couple of a black piece of foam tipped with the red. I'll tip it with yellow, white. Sometimes put maggots on, or a bit of a worm, dendrobina. That can work, but you got to make sure that, check it in the edge first, you know, make sure it's lifting it up, because sometimes if you put a bit of worm on and the foam's too small, you can get a slow sinker. So always check it in a deeper margin if you can. Anyway, that's what I use, and I use a small clear shrink tube liner. I'm using them Corda Cura hooks, the specialist sharpened ones. I think the sharpness of rigs is of mega importance, but with the small hooks I can't get them as sharp myself as these, so these are really very brilliant for the zigs, so I do recommend those. And that's a wide gape, it's a size 8, and as I say, I found them very good. if you don't bother putting the shrink tube on, sometimes if you do a knotless knot, you can get it hang at a funny angle, so it's not as acute at hooking fish. So I go to the trouble of putting it in boiling water very carefully. I don't steam it, I lower it into a kettle like this. Just give it a couple of seconds in there, and I do the Jim Gibbonson liner. And the other thing I should make clear is sometimes I leave them unflavoured, but you can have success flavouring them as well, obviously. It kind of flies in the face of why, if you're mimicking a fly or a fly hatch, why would a flavoured version be better? But I don't really know why they pick them up. I don't know whether they do think they're flies or whether they're just curious and they haven't got hands, so they go over and just suck it in regardless. I mean, you can catch them on boilies on zigs, obviously, so, you know, maybe it's just curiosity and it's right in the face and they're just sucking it in and you're not mimicking anything. Or maybe it is because they're mimicking flies, I don't know. But the fact is, it's always worth trying one flavoured and one unflavoured. And what I'll quite often do as well, I'll start with one just under the surface and I'll start another rod right near the bottom. Never ignore them bottom layers, because sometimes it can be deceiving. You tend to think the fish are high up in the water and they might be really close to the bottom. And a lot of people tend to fish more than 50% of the higher up half of the water, if you know what I mean, rather than the bottom 50%. But if you start with one close to the bottom, one close to the top, and gradually lengthen that one and shorten that one, you're going to find the fish quicker, the feeding depth. And the other thing to bear in mind that I always take into consideration, don't be scared of recasting quite regularly with zigs, because you've got the build-up of the microparticles in the water. Most waters in the spring have got like muddy water going in from stream inlets or from rainwater stirring it up, and you can get that sort of layer of crap that sticks to your line like static. So you want to be cleaning your up length off and recasting regular, and that's a good tip, because you really will get that at some stage. You can get it in the summer, obviously, when you've got algae and stuff flying about, but you know what I mean, it's that thin sort of stuff that can coat your main line. It can easily happen on your zigs, so don't be scared of rechucking, and then you can adjust the depths easier. And I use foam personally. I put 2 pieces of foam on my hook when I cast, so it separates it in the air. I'm fishing with Si, and he's a little bit paranoid about using foam, because he reckons it spins the hook length as it goes through the air, and it does look like that. But I've not brought many rigs back that have been tangled or spun. So whilst it does look a bit ungainly going through the air, I've had no problem, and I've caught many hundreds of fish on zigs, so it's worked for me. And I can't recall having any tangles. So some of you might fall in that category where you want to fish the zigs without the foam on, some with it on. But certainly if you're using a longer hook length, I would definitely put dissolving foam, but don't squeeze it on the bend of the hook. Use 2 pieces, just lick it and stick one either side and wet them together, and them two will just break away. Because if you fold it and wrap it around the hook, if the water's still quite cold, it can be on there hours later, because it's just sort of turned it into a ball like you get on a ball of PVA on the bottom. So bear that in mind as well. So that's another thing to consider. So whilst it's not happened on this occasion, I'm always happy to try and pass on a few small tips that I've learnt during my sort of journey of using zigs or whatever, you know. So I hope you're enjoying these little tips that I give in these things, because at the end of the day, I think the tips are worth more sometimes than me even catching a fish, you know, because we would expect that you can catch them. It's just that these things matter, and if I can pass on a few things that actually help your fishing, that's the important bit to me. So